Good afternoon, everyone, here and in your homes. Today I want to talk about seeing clearly. Seeing clearly. And when I was first drawn to Zen, I was drawn to Zen for kind of a couple of, I think, reasons in my life. One was that there was a lot going on in my life. At that time, I was struggling with anxiety, which had been a struggle for me my entire life. And then my dad's health was declining, and he had dementia, and so that added to my anxiety. And so I wanted some relief from my pain and suffering around those two areas, those areas. But there was another thing that brought me to Zen, and that was I wanted to, and closely related to these two, and that was I wanted to really kind of understand what's going on here in life. Some existential questions, like what the heck was going on? Who was I? What's the meaning of my life? Is there any purpose to it whatsoever? Why do I get so gripped by certain things that don't seem to affect other people? They seem to be just, I was thinking kind of naively that they were just chugging along pretty easily and lightly with life, and for me it was so difficult. So those were a couple of things that really drew me to Zen, and more and more I began to appreciate the fact that I think that if I could understand more what this was, what this reality was, whatever it was, that would help me as well. And if it didn't help me deal with some of the things, at least I'd be able to feel a little better about the fact that I wasn't so confused. About that same time, the first venture I took into trying to understand what this all was, what this reality was, trying to see it more clearly, I bought a few books, Eastern philosophy, among others, and a book by the Dalai Lama. And this book by the Dalai Lama had one chapter on it, and it was something like the ultimate reality, trying to understand the ultimate reality. And of course, I had no clue what that was. But I read it. I was on a business trip and with a member of my team across country, so I had plenty of time to read in the plane. And as I was reading this, I didn't understand it certainly, but I was fascinated by this idea of trying to see more what is really going on, this idea of kind of an ultimate reality. And if I had to put a name to it now, I'd say, he was writing about emptiness. But I don't believe he used that term very much in the chapter at all. It was more about reality, and this ultimate reality. So after we arrived at our destination for this meeting, and after our long flight back east, I hooked up with my member of my team, and I was so enthralled with this book that I'd been reading that I had to talk to him about it. And he was an intellectually curious guy, and he was also had become a friend of mine, and so he was willing to listen to me as I tried to expound upon something that I really didn't understand at all. But anyway, I talked to him about it. He seemed, he was curious enough to act like he seemed interested, and I think he did. But I remember telling him, I can't really put my finger on it, but there's this explanation about reality, and I don't quite get it, but I think I'm pretty close, and I think I can figure it out. I just need to spend some more time on it. And if you've got any insights, Bob, tell me, because I'd like to hear it. And that was kind of the way that evening went. And I later read some things that said, it's really important to do meditation to really become more aware and see who you are, who we are. But I didn't really want to do that and didn't have any background with that. And I thought I could get it out of a book. I sincerely thought I could get it out of a book. But anyway, after that little experience, I did some more kind of investigation and started reading about impermanence. Some of the books I had in Eastern philosophy and on Buddhism that I purchased, and they talked about impermanence. And I certainly was very fascinated with that, and it also tied in very nicely to kind of the, who am I, what am I, what's going on here. and still kind of in the throes of trying to figure all of this stuff out. And as I was dealing with impermanence, I certainly read, that everything was constantly changing, and nothing's ever really static, including myself. And so that was interesting to me. But then I started thinking about, I also read this thing about that it's not just that I'm changing and everything is changing, but really it's not even like there's a moment that is fixed that then takes us to the next moment, to another fixed moment, and then to the next moment. Because that begged a lot of questions. Well, how long do these fixed periods last? And so I kind of thought, well, maybe, I had no one known, but it seemed logical to me to think that there really was nothing but this flux, this just continual change with nothing being fixed at all. But obviously I didn't know, but that was it. And that was both fascinating to me and troubling to me too, because then it added more to this idea of, so who the heck am I? Who the heck am I? What's going on here? Who's my dad? When he was going through his health issues, dying, and who am I? So at that time, I was willing to try something new. Although the reading was interesting and some discussions I had with some folks, that was interesting, but I didn't really feel it was getting me much of anywhere. So I was ripe for trying something different, and the trying something different thing that I wanted to do was to go. I saw an ad in the Boulder Camera about a sitting group in at the time Lafayette, and it was called Great Mountain Zen Center. So it was in the religion section of the Boulder Camera, and so I saw where that was, where they would meet. Called up a gentleman that was very active in the Sangha at that time, and he gave me directions how to go there. And I think it was Tuesday morning at 5:30 that we met, and so I just showed up. Didn't know anything at all about Buddhism other than what I'd read in the book. Had not really done any meditation other than I did do a period. I daydream. I say what I would say for about a year. So I just kind of let my mind go, and actually I found that in some ways, helpful. It was calming, but it didn't necessarily get me too far as trying to see clearly what was going on in this space. So anyway, I showed up and didn't know any of the protocols or anything about sitting, but after I think we sat for like an hour and a half or something on that Tuesday morning, and there was a lot of mystery. There was walking meditation, which I didn't understand. There was a lot of bowing going on. Bells rang occasionally, which was really for Dokusan, but I didn't mean anything to me at all. I just knew that bells rang, and occasionally some people left, and then they came back. So after it was over, I went to the foyer at the Zen Center there in Lafayette, and Roshi came down, and he greeted me in the foyer. I was getting ready to take off for work, and there hadn't been too many people at this sitting, but there were several people there. Everybody was kind of getting going on about their way. But he said, "So, how'd it go?" And the only interaction I'd had with Roshi is I'd sent him an email saying if it was okay that I could just stop by and sit, and he said yes. In fact, he said I gave him some biases I had about stuff, about whatever I did or didn't know about. And then he said, no, just why don't you just come and check it out and see for yourself if it's a good fit for you. So he said, so how'd it go? And I said, well, I didn't know what I was doing as far as any of the protocols. I didn't call them protocols, but any of this stuff like the bowing and the walking around and this kind of stuff at all. But I said, but I really liked it. I really liked it. And even though I'd been uncomfortable, nervous stomach, this kind of stuff, some anxiety doing its thing, it felt wonderful, which seemed kind of odd to me, to tell you the truth. But Roshi said, well, I'm paraphrasing, but this is the way I heard it anyway. He said, well, don't worry about all that other stuff. Just keep sitting. Just keep sitting, right? And that really had an effect on me, and this 20 some years later, the fact that story came up so clearly and has many times for me through the years. And it reminded me a little bit of, I know some of you have read, probably a lot of you have read some of Stephen Batchelor's books, and he had this one book that I read quite a number of years ago, Buddhism Without Beliefs. But in this book, one of the things that he talks about is he says that the Four Noble Truths, the Four Noble Truths are not propositions to believe, they are challenges to act. Not propositions to believe, they're challenges to act. And by the way, Roshi gave a talk there a couple of weeks ago, the precepts. And he was making the point, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard him talk about the precepts before. But one of the things is, hey, these aren't the 10 commandments. They're not something you have to follow or you're a sinner or something like that. But there are vows we can take to embody what we really are, to really be what we are. It's like coming home again, just experiencing that. And so anyway, with Batchelor's comments, about it's not propositions, but it's challenges to act. That I was just reminded again of that time when Roshi said, well, don't get too concerned about all the other stuff. Just keep sitting. And I had taken at that time as that hit me like a load of bricks. Like, wait a minute. So the kind of stuff I've been doing for the last couple of years, whatever, reading, doing some of the stuff, daydreaming, that's maybe not the way I want to keep spending my time going forward. Maybe it'd be just as good for me to spend my time, playing golf or whatever, which I don't even play golf, but it might have been just about as valuable in this journey. So that was timely when he said that, and so I took that very seriously. And from then on, I did sit, and I did keep sitting, and made a little deal with myself, which I wouldn't recommend anybody necessarily, but for me it was helpful. And that was just, and I'd read this in a book too, but I did it based on kind of what Roshi said. It gave me some extra oomph. And that was just don't miss any days sitting for 6 months, just do it. And then it'd be kind of like brushing your teeth or whatever. And maybe there'd be some magical change, who knows? But I went ahead and did that. And of course, as I started practicing more and still very much interested in trying to figure out, to see more clearly what's going on moment by moment and what's going on in my life and other people's lives, I started to see that this really was a call, not so much a call to Buddhism per se for me. It was a call to practice, to Dharma practice. That's what I wanted to do. And I wanted to do this active thing as opposed to a passive thing. Now, before I got into it, when I was reading some things and just contemplating, I did view it as intellectual exercise, but certainly rather passive in some other ways. Like I mentioned, even when I played with meditation, it was just about really daydreaming and kind of relaxing a little, kind of spacing out. But then I began to see more and more that it was a call to practice and a real challenge, and it was something that I also knew that I needed to do both on the cushion and off the cushion. And certainly heard a lot of, by then, Dharma talks talking about the fact that zazen, the Roshi's Dharma talks, that it's not just, the zazen happens off the cushion and on the cushion. And of course, if we think about it, if you sat 2 hours a day even, which I think is quite a bit compared to what most people do with a practice, it's still 22 hours a day that you wouldn't be doing zazen unless you incorporate it off the practice. And then you could be doing it, literally 24/7 at some point. And I began to see that by doing the sitting, I was starting to, not intellectually really understanding anything more, but there was something going on, dating back even to that first time I sat with the GMCC group, that first time I ever sat with the group, where I felt something was just like, wow, this was great. I really liked it. and liked it, maybe it's not the right word, but that's what I'll say. That's what it was. And so there was something going on about experiencing stuff as opposed to an experience of stuff. Okay, so and I think Joko in one of her books talks about experiencing. But anyway, what I had thought was that I could have an experience in my life, and it would really be a wonderful experience or a very serene experience or whatever like that. And then with the sitting, I began to see that not all the time, but sometimes that what I could do in the zazen was there could be experiencing, right? Experiencing. But at first I would say like, well, that was pretty cool, or that I got something out of that, or whatever like that. And then of course I also started to see that wasn't really maybe what it was. And then with the help of the Sangha and talking to other people and the Roshis and all that, I began to see that it was the experiencing, not the experience that seemed to keep me on track. And maybe that was a clue about this seeing clearly rather than trying to intellectualize this clarity that I was after and concretize it into something that I could get and hold on to and grasp. Maybe that was barking up the wrong tree. Maybe it was this experiencing that happened when I was in zazen, either on the cushion, but primarily on the cushion, but off the cushion too, where I just could experience this isness, flux, whatever you want to call it, right? And of course, another thing about the zazen too that was so helpful was there's this kind of hackneyed example, but it's hackneyed for a reason, I suppose. There's some truth in it, and that is that if you view this, what we are as this glass of pulpy orange juice, and it just looks like a bunch of orange juice, but then if you sit it on a table, whatever, come back in a day, then you can see the clear, the water on top, and then you can see the pulp on the bottom. It's like the orange juice has developed some clarity like that, right? Just like we can do with our zazen when things start to settle down more and we start to be experiencing this whatever it is, and have more clarity doing it that way by experiencing on the cushion than maybe intellectualizing about what is the meaning of life, or what's it all about. And another thing that zazen I think is so helpful for in our practice is it does create a little bit of space. I mean, it's a pretty crazy world, right? So much stimulus and stimulus overload, really, between all the things that are going on. We get so much news, and there are the headline news, and different cable stations and stuff have these updates going on all the time. And you can't go hardly any place without being bombarded with TV sets and explanations of things and all this, and arguments, and what Trump did in the last 5 minutes, and some crazy thing he said, and other people too, not just Trump, but boy, he certainly gets my attention with some of the stuff that he talks about and grabs attention. And so it really could be, for me anyway, and with a tendency towards anxiety anyway, it was otherwise stimulus overload, right? And it had become more and more that way here in the last several years, even than it had been before. It seems like we're getting logarithmically more and more stimulus upon us. It's not linear anymore. It's just really exponential. So anyway, and certainly I found zazen to be helpful with that. Zazen to help me have a little space, just a little space, sometimes quite a lot of space actually, but sometimes even just a little space where there was more room for experiencing rather than being overwhelmed. I think that was a change, was instead of being overwhelmed with all of it and making me anxious and stuff like that, no, there's a little bit of space here. And then at times there was a lot of space, and it really helped with my anxiety, absolutely. But it also helped me have more of a feeling of a little bit more of a feeling of what this reality really could be, and that I was experiencing. Now, zazen certainly it's all about, it's a cornerstone of our practice, of course, and it is about learning to live with this life and this reality as it is for us, moment by moment. Not to have some contrived view or concretized view of what reality is, but all this stuff. me getting frustrated by something or agitated with something I hear on the news. That's part of it. Can I be there with that? And the answer is not always, but sometimes I can, and I can a heck of a lot more than I used to. And one of the reasons is that in doing the zazen over years, and I'm sure you've experienced this as well. There's more space to just take these things in, like I was saying earlier, and it's not as it doesn't feel like I'm going crazy, which is so much stimulus overload. There's more space for that, and also with the zazen on the cushion, it also helps be able to be more present off the cushion as well, and so getting a lot of breaks throughout the day and night, for that matter, of just this visceral, body-centered practice, this body-centered zazen, which again is bringing me home over and over again. And I'm guessing, who knows, doesn't really make any difference, but I'm guessing that the reason I was so affected by that first time I sat at Great Mountain Zen Center at 5:30 in the morning on a Tuesday, without knowing really what I was doing at all, never having sat with a group before, anything, was that some part I was experiencing something that had been missing in my life. And even though I didn't know what Kinhin was, or I really didn't know what Zen was, or what the gongs meant, or any of stuff, who cares? It affected me, and it really in a, don't want to overstate this, but kind of rocked my world, Another thing about this in this quest to see more, ongoing quest to be seeing more clearly, and clearing up a little space through daily zazen. As it cleared up a little more space, I noticed that life gets more vibrant, right? It's more vibrant. So other times I'd played with trying to be mindful before, and that was helpful, but because there was so much busyness in my life in general, my experiences sometimes it didn't. It was hard for me to keep the mindfulness, first of all, and secondly, it just got kind of dull for me. But I noticed that with zazen and paying attention, there was a kind of a aliveness or vibrancy to the experience of quite mundane things in life, like putting out the newspaper, or at that time I was swimming on a master's swim team. Terrible swimmer, but I had fun doing it. And after practice, which would be late in the evening, I'd head out and walk back to my truck. And much like after zazen, just having that experience, that fluid motion of swimming and everything, and getting so into it at the practice, I just felt awesome, and it was so reminiscent of experiences I had every day after I'd sit in the morning and then go out and just get the paper in the driveway, and that was it was awesome. Really something that I enjoyed, and of course that began to tie in more and more to things. And by the way, I want to be clear, it's not like some blissful experience all the time. Anybody that knows me knows I get frustrated, I get ticked off, I get all this stuff. But I am telling you as clearly as I can that it has some very profound impact on my life, and it was pointing me more and more maybe in the direction of what of being able to be a little bit more clear. As I alluded to here earlier too, this clarity that we may begin to see sometimes more on the cushion or off the cushion, it also can get pretty fuzzy at times too. And I gave the example about maybe some of the things we hear in the news, or some of the things in Trump, or conspiracy theories, or even news being labeled as everything's fake news, right? It's all fake news. Trump came up with that. And then this idea even that we're bombarded with is that there's alternate facts. We get to facts, but then you got the alternate facts, right? And so that's disconcerting and frustrating and confusing as well. So how can we, how are we gonna, how do we deal with all that? How do we deal with all this craziness and the conspiracy theories and all these different kind of things like this? And also do it without just being incredibly judgmental all the time about everything and getting distracted too. Well, I'll just mention here as far as seeing through and dealing with all these things. I'm sure a number of you have read Nagarjuna, and this his idea of like this instead of a dilemma, a tetralemma, right? So instead of like two different things, maybe four different things as far as looking at the nature of phenomena. And I will grossly oversimplify this, but I'll do it anyway. That one thing is, phenomena this could be true, or it could be false. So maybe it's true or not true. It could be false, or things could be both true and false, or they could be neither true nor false. So that's how you get the tetralemma thing. And the other thing is things could be none of those four, right? It could be neither, it's not true, it's not false, it's not true and false, it's neither true nor false. Seems like, well, there's not really much of anything left, but maybe that's where the truth is. I don't know, who knows? But so where does that get us, or at least what does that help me with a little bit, is quit trying to figure this stuff all out, and have to have a concretized kind of solution or formulaic approach to my life, or even what seeing clearly is. That intellectual energy may not be the ticket. I'm not saying it doesn't help people. I'm not saying to read some of the classic Zen masters, Dogen and different folks, because they're brilliant folks and they have all kinds of insights, and a very important part of our lineage for those of us who do koan studies is getting all kinds of pointers from koan work. So don't want to minimize that at all, but I'm just saying that it's also easy for some of us. It certainly used to be easy for me to just, well, let me read this instead of, and that'll help me figure it out. But for me, it certainly did not. So anyway, with such a confusing world we live in, what can we really know? How can we really see clearly? Well, there's a gentleman, some of you probably read some of his things. I think he's written several books. And he's a Katagiri student, and he used to be the abbot of Dharma Field Meditation Center in Minneapolis, named Steve Hagen. And he makes the point that we can't know small k, we can't really know what's going on here. We can't really know reality. That none of it really, anything that we make more concrete cannot stand the test of analysis, of assessment. It just doesn't, it won't stand up. And he gives lots of examples, but I won't go into that here. I think most of us can kind of appreciate that that's the case. But he does say, you can't know small k, N-O-W, reality, but you can know, and we all do, without exception, know with the big K, reality. We can't not know that, because that's our life, right? That is all. And to make that analogy again is like, if I never had a drink of water before, or filtered water, or whatever exactly this is I'm drinking, right? If I just had other liquid beverages before, and you told me all about water and how great it was, and its formulas, H2O, and there's covalent bonding, and there's just whatever's going on with this thing, right? Okay, that would be cool, but I still wouldn't, maybe intellectually I might think I kind of know a little bit about it, but if you just take a drink, ooh, that's it, right? That's it. Oh, I know water. I've had that before. I know that. So all the reading about it, knowing if it were orange juice, what its specific weight was, or what, how much glucose there was in it, or any of these kind of, that all just becomes, I'm not saying it's unimportant. It's great for people that sell orange juice and grow oranges and all that. But for me, If I just had a sip, that would be satisfying me. Another example of that to me would be, I have a granddaughter, 3 years old, lives in Phoenix. Liv, she when she was learning to walk, she couldn't do it at first, and she crawled and all that. But then she learned to walk, and of course now she can walk. I doubt she could explain to me how she walks, but she certainly walks quite well. And I can't explain to you how the heck I walk, right? And I can't explain to you how I read. I can do it, but I know reading, I know walking, right? We all know it, but we don't. Maybe we can't intellectualize it, and I don't think anybody can. How that all works. So anyway, another example I wanted to bring up of this knowing kind of thing, and raw experience, because again I keep coming back to zazen is this raw experience, stripped down experience of our life and of reality, right? And it's a way that we can see it more clearly than we can in our overly stimulus-filled world a lot of times. But I remember reading. No, it was this. I think it was actually, I heard this on the internet. But anyway, Thich Nhat Hanh was asked, wouldn't it be, after giving some talk, he was asked, wouldn't it be nice to know what it would have been like if the Buddha would have met Jesus? What would that have been like? And he said, what do you mean? He was paraphrasing slightly, but not much. He said, they are together. They're in my heart all the time, right? They've met each other. They're meeting each other every moment, right? That's what I am. So again, that idea of, I'm sure I would have had a hard time convincing Thich Nhat Hanh that, wait a minute, what's that? Heart mumbo jumbo. Yeah, it's we're talking about the together, being together some way, physically. But of course, he knew what he did know. He did know. And just even reading that or hearing it, whatever it was I heard on the internet, that was really loving, touching gesture he offered to everybody. By the way, he said that and said it so confidently. I'll share one thing too that along those same lines, that's very personal for me. But I remember being raised by a Christian minister, and we'd come up, there were lots of beliefs, lots of things that people believed or they didn't believe. Did you believe in the virgin birth? Well, like my dad, no. Don't believe in that. Do you believe in evolution? And his response would have been to that, heck yes, of course I believe in evolution. Do you believe in the 6-day? No, don't believe in Genesis. So he had these views of things he believed, and he didn't believe. But one of the things that I got asked one time in Sunday school was, do you believe in the second coming of Jesus? That Jesus was going to come back, right? I was a little kid, right? So I said, no. And then the Sunday school teacher said, well, you got to believe that to be a Christian or something like that. So I remember going home and asking my dad about that. I said, do you believe in the second coming? The idea that Jesus would come back or whatever. And he said, oh yeah, I believe the second coming. Are you talking about the second coming? Are you talking about the third coming? And he said, the second coming is when he's in my heart. He's in my life right now. He's in everybody's life, whether they know it or not. That's the second coming. Third coming, nah, doubt it. Anyway. Okay, so another little anecdote I wanted to share with you that some of you have heard this from Roshi. I love this story though. And it's a Bernie Glassman story. And someone asked him at a talk, how can I be in the here and now? And Bernie said, well, everyone who's not in the here and now, please stand up, And again, that just kind of cuts to this idea of knowing versus not knowing, right? I could just see myself, being in a group like that, and he asked that question, I'd be like, God, I don't know, I'm kind of distracted, and my mind's on the beach, and all that, I guess I'm not here, And then he just, like a dagger, you're freaking here, get it? And that would have made quite an impact on me, I think, and I'm sure it did on those people. Now, let me ask you a different question. Or is it maybe not different at all? right now, some of you are thinking, damn, I just want to go sit some more this afternoon. Some of you are bored, some of you are asleep, some of you are awake, some of you are mildly interested. Whatever's going on right now for you. But at this moment, are you in reality? You don't have to answer this. You don't have to raise your hand. It's not a trick question. It's just, are you in reality, right? But maybe if you aren't, maybe you could catch up with me later. I'd like to know that trick. But anyway, so that's just something to ponder. And then something else, kind of like in Bernie's illustration there, where he says, well, whoever's not in the here and now, please stand up. Well, a similar way, we hear a lot about that we all are Buddhas, right? We all have Buddha nature. But perhaps at times you may have had the feeling, well, yeah, but maybe not quite buying in on that or whatever. But yeah, okay, I'm supposed to say yes, so that's it. So I would ask you that same question again. No answer required, but just to contemplate: Are you Buddha right now, right at this moment? Are you Buddha? So are you Buddha? Are you in reality? Are you here? Just kind of keep those, make them maybe living things to ponder in your life. I want to share a koan with you that is really, it's just a koan that's, I think, really powerful. Let's leave it at that. And some of you are quite familiar with this. Some of you maybe not so much so. And I would encourage you that the book of equanimity that Shishin Roshi wrote and did the commentaries for these koans, these 100 koans. And this is one of those koans, and his write-up is very, very helpful pointer. But let me just, in a very abbreviated manner, share this because I think it ties closely to what we're talking about and to seeing clearly and experiencing this life. And it goes like this, and it's case 98 in the Book of Equanimity. A monk asked Tozan, among the three bodies, which one does not fall into any category? Among the three bodies, which one does not fall into any category? And Tozan replies, as to this, I always take heed. As to this, I always take heed. Well, first of all, these three bodies, the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya, these three kind of bodies of the Buddha, like wisdom, realization of wisdom, utilization of wisdom. So what's going on with that question? Well, it's all reality, like we're talking about today. So he's splitting up, as Roshi points out in his commentaries, splitting up reality, asking Tozan to split it up into these three different aspects. And not only split it up, but intellectualize about now which one really captures it, these three, right? But Tozan's response is so simple, but like our practice, simple but not easy. He says, as to this, I always take heed. So I'm not going to get into that. That would be time not well spent and to try to tear reality apart, which we, I think, all know kind of implicitly. We're not going to be able to tear and separate out different components of reality. Reality is reality, right? So instead his answer is, as to this, I always take heed. To this, I always pay attention. To this, I'm always experiencing what's going on. But then again, as Roshi points out in this book, he doesn't say, hey, when I'm having a good day, I really pay attention, right? Or he doesn't say, when I'm feeling mellow, I really pay attention. He's saying, as to this, I always take heed. So when he feels like crap, he's paying attention to that. When he's thrilled, he's paying attention to that. When he's joyous, he's paying attention to that. When he's unhappy, he's paying to that. When he's depressed, he's paying to that. That's what we're getting to, and that's this what I would call not seeing clearly by experiencing. Okay, not saying, "Oh, I'm depressed." Well, what's that? But just being this depressed, right? That's the raw experiencing, as opposed to intellectualizing about, just like with anger, or anything else, that I'm so freaking pissed off. Well, that's okay. That's some kind of verbalization of it, intellectualization of it, but maybe you're just, that kind of a thing, right? So, so that I think that Tozan's teaching, and again, read it in Roshi's book to get much more specifics on it. But I think just that idea of experiencing every aspect of life, it's all reality. We can't escape. When we're on the beach, we're not paying attention. That's our reality. When we're paying acute attention, that's our reality. And not hold on to any of it, because man, it is changing fast. Keep up, right? My basketball coach, when I was in high school, said, Brown, you got to keep up. You got to keep up. We'd be doing these drills, and I'd be daydreaming or something like that. And he'd like throw a basketball at me or something, try to get my attention, which I didn't much care for. But I do remember keep up. That part I remember. So at the end of each day of sesshin, and we'll experience this just a little bit later today, the Ino, she recites the evening gata, right? And it goes, let me respectfully remind you, life and death are of supreme importance. Time swiftly passes by and opportunity is lost. Each of us should strive to awaken, take heed. Do not squander your life, And so this life is precious. It's ever changing. And not only let's not squander it, whatever that exactly would be, where we're not really paying attention to what's going on. I'll use that as a phrase for squandering it, just being asleep at the wheel. And the other thing is, and viewed in maybe a different, rather unnegative way, is let's appreciate it. Maizumi Roshi's book was Appreciate Your Life. So let's appreciate it. Let's focus on that. Then we're not going to be squandering it. We don't want to squander it because it's just touching us. We're appreciating it. Well, let me read this first, and then I'll do a brief little closing. But this from Uchiyama Roshi, who has his teachings, I think are extremely well documented, and he many of you are familiar with his work. But anyway, I want to just read something that he wrote, and he was a Zen master of the 20th century. Whatever our life may be, that is the reality of life. So there is no possibility of living outside the reality of life. Nonetheless, it is all too possible to live losing sight of this reality, and because of that, to suffer and agonize about our lives. So, with those thoughts echoing in our ears, I just want to close by saying, so here we are. We're in this life. We're in this reality, ever-changing as it is. And we do our zazen. We chant. We brush our teeth. We pee. We poop. We get angry. We get sad. We're joyous. We're depressed. We're flustered. We're calm. We're brilliant. We're ignorant. So on we go. We keep on living this rich life of the Buddha.